On Idea Morning Digest on Idea Television. Now we move to the discussion segment where we are following the breaking news of United States deploying its troops to Nigeria. We turn to the development that carries significant security and diplomatic implications for Nigeria and the wider West African region. For the first time in years, the United States has confirmed a limited military presence on Nigerian soil following airstrikes carried out in December against terrorist targets. While officials describe the deployment as small and strategic, it raises important questions about sovereignty, counter-terrorism strategy, regional security cooperation, and Nigeria's evolving relationship with Washington. This is not just a military story, it's a geopolitical one, with implications for how Nigeria confronts terrorism, manages foreign partnerships, and navigates international and internal pressure. Let's unpack what this development means, why it's happening now, and what Nigeria should be paying attention to going forward. This news broke yesterday by Reuters news agency that the United States has deployed a small number of U.S. armed forces to Nigeria. And first of all, I think this is a concerning development for the country, and the government has to take responsibility for this. And I find it very, very difficult that this information is not being announced by the federal government of Nigeria to its citizens. And I wonder, who are those in charge? Who sanctioned this deployment into Nigeria? Are the federal government's agencies involved in this process? Do we have the National Assembly involved in this process? And what are the resources that are being provided? What are the resources that are being brought into the country to help us to fight our problem in Nigeria? We know that since President Trump came into power, he has been focused on solving problems all around the world. Perhaps he's created more problems that we already have for the country, we do not know. And that coincided last December on Christmas morning, where President Trump ordered the African Command to launch airstrikes in Nigeria, with targeting, according to the statements released, terrorist targets in Nigeria. But what ensued after was that we had no casualty from that airstrikes in Nigeria, and there were even unexploded ordnance that was left behind by that. So what are the strategic assessment that is being done to ensure that all of those, to understand the effectiveness of that airstrikes in Nigeria, of that military action that was taken by Washington? And what is the level of collaboration between Nigeria and Washington? Because our problem is multifaceted. We've said this time and again, and I think it's even been said to the President of America right now that there's no Christian genocide in the country. What we're facing is a multifaceted issue of terrorism, of banditry, of farmers' headers clashes in the country, of kidnapping, and it is an asymmetric warfare. It is impossible. I mean, we don't have any terrorist group like Boko Haram that used to occupy large Nigerian territories where you can deploy the forces there to fight them heads on. If they've infiltrated into our communities, that you can't just go into those communities and fire at those people. Civilian casualties is something that we are very averse to having been occurred in Nigeria. So we need to be very, very observant and need to clarify their position in the country. Are they here to support our troops? Are they here to carry out operations by themselves? And what are the resources that is being facilitated to come into the country? Because if we do not understand this position, very soon we'll begin to see that the United States has bases in the country. We want to welcome support. Nigeria has opened its heart. The people have clamored for international institutions and bodies and countries to collaborate with the country to ensure that we nip this in the bud and suppress this level of insurgency, the chronic corruption, insecurity that we have in the country. But how can we do this? We need to do this in a very safe, coordinated manner to ensure that people's needs are prioritized, Nigeria's sovereignty is respected, people's wills are also respected, because we do not want a system where we begin to have one part of our country not accessible to us or being carved out by a foreign power which has its own influence, its own interest, and its own strategies to bring peace to Nigeria. What is the peace that we want for our country, and how can we be able to achieve this through collaboration with not only the United States but other world powers that can share intelligence with Nigeria, that can sell weapons to Nigeria, that can help us to ensure that the facilitation of terrorist financing across the international body, how can we ensure that we arrest that and bring them to justice? So we cannot just say we're deploying them to Nigeria without having a holistic conversation, even announcing that in Nigeria to Nigerians, this news should not be coming from Reuters news agency. It should be coming from the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The government, the spokespersons should not be there to just only defend the government, but should be able to there to serve the people, not the person in power. So they should be able to come out, give us all the adequate information. We're not asking you to divulge all the security interventions that needs to be taken. We know those are redacted information, but let us know where they are deployed, what they are doing, how they want to do it. We're not asking for the strategies. We're not asking to know how many instruments have brought into the country. The federal government can know that. But how many troops are in Nigeria? We need to know. Are we giving them a base? Those are the questions that need to be asked.
I mean, so many questions. This raises so many questions. I think this is where Nigerians understandably become very uneasy. And being uneasy at this point in time is very, very valid. I can say that. Because, I mean, it's almost like we are getting second-hand information. Because the next thing you are going to see, the Nigerian government will come out and say, we consent to this.
To this.
We consent to this.
To interrupt you. When we look at the issue of... it just skipped my mind right now. Something keeps. Just go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Talking about consenting to this, we have to understand that consenting alone, or consent rather alone, doesn't end the conversations. We have to look at the conversation. The real issue is about clarity.
It's about clarity.
We have to understand who is doing what, who is deploying who agreed to what, just like you started off saying. Because sovereignty, when we talk about sovereignty and national control, it isn't just about raising our flags, because I think that's what Nigerians understand about, sovereignty and national control. It's not just about, it's not just about formal permissions as well. It's about who ultimately decides what happens to what happens to our airspace, what is happening in Nigeria, what's happening in our soil. People want to understand. What is happening to our security architecture? People want to understand all of these things. Who is directing operations when information comes in?
And we should begin to ask ourselves.
We want to ask ourselves all these questions.
Nigeria has the power to deploy troops to Benin Republic to foil the coup attempts. Why are they finding it difficult to solve our own security challenges? And also the issue of sharing of information to Nigerians. Why does it seem that it feels beneath this government to come out openly to tell Nigerians what is actually happening? Before, when a few months ago, we were talking about the attempted coup in Nigeria. The federal government came out to say, there was nothing like that. The armed forces security agencies also came out to say, there was nothing like that nobody's going to take over Nigeria. That can never happen in the country. Now we have the chief of army staff, we have the chief of defense staff coming out to say that, a lot of people have been arrested. There was actually a long list of people that were going to be killed, and these are the officers that were supposed to gain access into the seat of power in the country and declare their own government in the country. So why do we come out and the first thing to do is to debunk and say, this is not true. And at the end of the day, you come out and say, this is actually true. There seems to be inconsistencies here.
I mean, Nigeria has, going back, first of all, when this happened, the last time this similar thing happened, I was like, I stood in defense of Nigeria. I was like, okay, not informing the citizens of what is going on could be that they want to protect.
We're not asking for
citizens at one point in time. But at this point in time, we need to understand, because if we do not have clarity or understanding of where we are going to, what we are doing, because Nigeria has had this long history of very complicated, let me put it, complicated history of external security assistance. We've seen situations where foreign involvement quietly, expands over time, not because anyone planned it, but because dependencies, if I should put it that way, crept in. So once your counter-terrorism framework is leans heavily on external aids, on foreign directions, foreign control, then it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem, all because what are we going to say? They have more intelligence, tech, or they have more,
we witnessed this same thing, Cynthia. We witnessed it during Jonathan era, when we began to bring mercenaries into the country, when the Boko Haram militants proscribed as terrorists at the time began to gain territories in Nigeria and declaring their own Islamic states. We began to see how Jonathan government brought in some mercenaries into the country, and Nigerians were not informed. It led to a row in the country where people began to criticize them. Are we not up to the par? Don't we have capable hands on to target these people? So we need to look at our own system. What is going wrong? And even with the issue of armament, we've been able to secure. Donald Trump has been one of the most favorable presidents to Nigeria. Obama really dealt with Nigeria. We didn't get all the necessary resources that we needed to fight terrorism in Nigeria. But President Trump has been able to give us opportunity to purchase a lot of arms, but it takes years to be able to do that. How about we look at our own local manufacturing? If we're talking about manufacturing for basic civilian use, we need to talk about manufacturing for also military use as well, because the responsibility of the government is not only to provide foods and goods and services to ensure that protection of life and properties, security is one of the primary responsibility of the government. And if your security is not internal, if your security is not sovereign, if your security is not devoid of interference from other countries, this is where you begin to have questions like this, concerns like this. We need to up our domestic capacities. Are we able to produce tanks in our country? Look at Iran. Iran has been sanctioned for more than 47 years, and the country is able to provide military intelligence. The country began to produce drones. Now America is copying the drones. Russia is copying their drones. Turkey is copying their drone technology. We see what they've been able to do with missile technology. We see what they're able to do with counterintelligence, information warfare. What have we been able to do for ourselves in this country by ourselves? Our universities are there, our research institutions are there. What are they producing? What are the funding going to them to ensure that they are able to produce necessary military hardware, intelligence, security, and everything that relates to ensuring that safety is adhered to in this country? It has to be local. Our security has to be local. We need to be able to have those resources within ourselves. What if the entire world said that we're not going to help Nigeria? Are we going to just give up?
I mean, if a foreign body is coming in to map terrorist centers, target areas, mapping networks, terrorist networks, mapping, making influence influencing strike decisions and all of these things is a problem for Nigeria. Just like you say, like you mentioned earlier, it's kind of diluting our domestic capability. What will be left of us if, in real sense, we do not have that? How should I put it? Integration at scale when it comes to building infrastructure, when it comes to building all of the things we need to be, ready and battlefield ready, rather. And it starts with intelligence and gathering. Once intelligence gathering fails from the initial state, then that's when we begin to talk of all of these dependencies. And when will dependency leave us with, or leave us at? This is where it will leave us at. From this stage of, okay, we gave consent to them, okay, we gave, the next thing you start to see, what happened in Venezuela. That's the next thing you start to see. No matter how we look at a country, no matter how we look at the problem that lies in there, we have to understand that sovereignty is sovereignty. And first of all, we need to understand sovereignty beyond the word sovereignty. First of all, we need to understand what it entails, what we need as a country to stand and say we are sovereign. If we go to Benin, we can proudly say we are a sovereign nation because we know what we can. We know what we can do. We know our roles and responsibility. But when it comes to our country, I don't think we can stand at this point in time to say we are a sovereign nation.